Hello there. So today I want to actually go through a comment someone's put in a video I did about atheists and all that stuff. Something atheists don't realize if they're responding to me is I was them. I've been through all their points of views. I've actually argued their points of views for years, and I was on board with it. I believed in it and all that stuff. And they're going to argue with me those things I've already been through. I'm at a point where it's like I will challenge any atheist to a debate on their worldview. The one debate I know that can't be won, which is where every person that debates atheists, as far as I can tell, falls short, is proving there's a God. I don't think you can prove there's a God, okay? I'm not convinced that that's possible. I am convinced there's a God. I would call myself, if you're going to put me in a category, a agnostic theist. Usually it's agnostic atheist. Like, you can't really prove there's no God 100%. The small chance maybe there is, you'll call yourself an agnostic. That's what an agnostic atheist is. But overall, you're an atheist. You don't believe there's a God. And then there's an agnostic who's like, they just don't really know. They're not going to say they don't believe there's a God, so they're just an agnostic. That's really the difference between an agnostic and an agnostic atheist, in case anyone's wondering. So I've actually been there, and I've been through all the arguments, and I would like to debunk as much of it as I can and actually prove how it's actually not good for you. A lot of it's really just fueled with rage and hatred and anger and just aggression towards what is atheist, by the way? A lot of people don't realize what atheist is. A lot of atheists don't realize what atheist is. I view atheist as secularism, which is to be without God. It's to be without God or canceling theism, canceling religion, which essentially would mean that a lot of people have made the argument. I've heard this made to Sam Harris, saying you live as a Christian, you just don't believe there's a God, but you actually do live as a Christian, meaning there's ideals that is embraced. I used to actually, when I was an atheist, would think like this is an absurd argument, but I'm coming to grips to actually understanding to a certain what I think it means, which is there are things he believes in as an individual that aligns with religious worldviews, the theist worldview. He just doesn't believe in the God part of it. He's more of a deist. Deist is just like a God who doesn't intervene. He doesn't believe there's a God. It's not really a deist, but whatever. He doesn't believe there's a God, but he believes in the worldview from the God in a large ways. What really they're saying, not being expressed to that extent, but that's what's being said, I think. Anyhow, so here's an argument from somebody who I said basically that atheists are pessimists, and the reason they're pessimists is because there's no worldview that gives them a reason to be an optimist. The world itself is not exactly a happy, hopeful place, and even if it was, it wouldn't matter because you live, you die, and none of it mattered. That's just the reality of secularism. That is our lives. I can literally go out, do whatever I want. You're gonna punish me for what? Doing what exactly? Something you didn't like? Why does it matter that you didn't like it and I did? I liked killing those people. So you didn't like it? So you're gonna punish me because you didn't like it? That doesn't seem nice. Like, why don't you do things you like? If you mind your own business, I mind my business, and that's it. You kill people, I kill people. They don't matter. I don't matter. I'm gonna die. You're gonna die. It's just a matter of when. What does it matter? It's like this is there's no worldview that makes sense to actually say from atheists like morality matters. There just isn't, objectively. Anyhow, so let's go through this comment. It said, well, there are a lot of religious people who would disagree with, I guess, me being a pessimist, saying atheists are pessimists. It says, just look at Mother Teresa, who thought that in suffering lies way to grace of God. Okay, so what? That Yeah, that doesn't mean that people should just be pessimistic. That's not what that means. This is called a straw man argument. This is atheists love calling out straw men, but they do it themselves all the time. That's what they're doing here. He says, I don't think you have really th- thought that through, since if hurting leads to egoism, then Jesus would have been on the path when he suffered on the cross anyway. I know plenty of people who are quite optimists without the need for deities, who can find happiness without the need of or purpose of morality. It's not tied to deities, whatever. This is basically making a bunch of arguments here. This is what atheists do. They will say a bunch of other things that aren't reality. In reality, you see atheists, you meet atheists, you watch atheists, they're generally just hateful. They hate people who are religious. They don't fit in the norm. Why do I say that? They don't fit in the norm? Because within the norm, most people generally tend to believe there's a God, and they want to be happy and they want to see the good. Atheists, on the other hand, they not only see the bad, they want to see the bad. They want to find the bad. They want to go through all the things about religion and pick at every little thing and hate on it and show that they're right and the other people are wrong. The other people being most of society. Most of people actually have a form of religious belief of some sort. And the atheists want to bash on it and say, you guys are all crazy people. You guys are all wrong. I was part of that worldview. I was part of, you go from being an atheist to an anti-theist very quickly because they get you to say, yeah, none of this makes any sense, to look how crazy these things are. And then you think, like, yeah, these things are crazy. What's wrong with these people? Like, let's try to fix them. You get to the extent that the atheists, well, they follow and I guess worship, idolize Richard Dawkins, who goes out and says, let's mock them and make them feel stupid with their beliefs and things like that. This is the logical conclusion of atheism. Heather McDonald is a very smart person, and she draws things to its logical conclusion. I think when she said she's a pessimist, it's because she really thought it through and realized, yeah, based on my worldview, there's no way of concluding that this worldview makes sense to actually being optimist for anything. And I think that makes sense. I don't see the worldview that you can be secular and make sense, where it's coherent to say this actually concludes to optimism. I don't see how that's possible. And any atheist who tells me that there are people out there, as he's saying, there's all these people out there who this and that and blah, blah, blah. People say a lot of things. People do a lot of things. People don't even know where they stand on things a lot of the times. I've said before, there are people out there who are actually secular, but they'll consider themselves to be religious because they'll pray and they'll go to synagogue or they'll go to church and they'll do whatever, but they're kind of just going with what the mob is doing, essentially what their people are doing, and they're idolizing and worshiping what the people are saying. They're not people of God necessarily. And but if you ask them, are you a theist? Of course they'll say, I'm a theist. I'm a religious, devout person, and I go to church and I go to synagogue and I do all these things. But in reality, they could be a secular. They could be just as atheist, as secular as a person who's actually an atheist and not even realize it. I mean, the atheist himself may believe something or another. I've heard atheists saying, I actually believe in spiritual things or whatever it is. It's like, this isn't coherent. This doesn't make sense. The idea that everything a person says they believe makes sense and is right isn't even. There's no arguing with that. That's just saying, oh, well, you can be. That's the same thing as transgenderism. Really, you could say, who am I to say that just because you look like a man, you have the parts of a man, that you're actually a man? Maybe you're, because you say you're a woman, you're a woman. It's really the same line of thinking, the same line of arguing, and it's absurd. It doesn't have any base in objective reality. In objective reality, things on their own make sense for what they actually are on their own. So if we go through each individual, and you were to show me, you were to tell me, let's say you were to come to me and say, I am an atheist who's an optimist about life. I will ask you why. Now you might be optimist about life. I can't say you shouldn't be optimist.